Hi there, this is David, and we need to talk about Live Alive. If you go anywhere on the internet, you're going to find all sorts of randoms singing the praises of this so-called hidden gem. Personally though, I don't think that it's anything of the sort. It's unique, I'll give it that. But a gem? I think not. I first played Live Alive well over 20 years ago when it was first translated back in 2001, whenever I was in college. I was so excited for it. It was an SNES RPG made by Square, and that meant quality back in the day. However, I was sorely disappointed. Maybe it's because I didn't know anything about it going into it. I figured that it would be similar to other RPGs released on the SNES, something classic like Final Fantasy or Dragon Quest, or maybe even something quirky but still fun like Illusion of Gaia. But this was not anything like that. It's just weird, and some of you might like that, but I want to be the first to tell you that this game is nothing like anything else you've ever played, for better or for worse. So I am here to prepare you for what is in store for you in the upcoming remake. First off, let it be known, this is no Final Fantasy. In fact, it's really nothing like any other game that Square has ever made. Instead, this is an experiment, and you can tell the popularity of Live Alive by looking at all of its sequels. Oh, what do you mean it doesn't have any sequels? Yeah, the Japanese gamers didn't think it was all that hot either. Over the years, I've made countless videos detailing all the great RPG offerings on the SNES, but never once have I ever put Live Alive into any of those top 10 lists, and I've received a lot of flack for that, but I am here to defend my position. I want to highlight great games, and I'm sorry to say, Live Alive is not a great game. As I said earlier, I played this when it was first translated, and I hated it then. But with the recent announcement, I thought that I would give it another chance by streaming it over on the Twitch and sharing it with my audience. Maybe it would grow on me over the past 20 years. But it didn't, and I'm here to say that it's just as bad as I remember it. I still hate this game as much as I did 20 years ago, and now let me tell you why. But before we even get started going into the nitty-gritty of the gameplay, I think that it should be known that this game is cheap. It was obviously created on a budget. I mean, look at the graphics. It's using the engine of the 1992 Final Fantasy V, but Live Alive was actually released in 1994, about 6 months after Final Fantasy VI. So graphics don't normally bother me, but in this case, I think it just goes to show the lack of polish and the lack of care. Then, there's the maps for each chapter. The entire world of Live Alive is no larger than Final Fantasy VI's World of Balance. In fact, I would venture to say that the entire world is actually no larger than the beginning of the World of Balance up to the scenario split. Everything is just so tiny, rushed, and cheaply made. From the get-go, you choose from 7 characters, each with their own chapter, similar to something like a Saga game. But whereas chapters in Saga intertwine and they share a large open world, that is not the case here. Each chapter is its own self-contained world, and some of them are just tiny. For instance, one chapter has no exploration whatsoever. You literally just fight 7 battles and that's it, you're done. Another chapter gives you exactly 1 town to explore and nothing else, no dungeons, nothing, just a town. Another one, just a spaceship, that's it. And another one, just a castle. Whoop-de-frickin-do. Out of the starting 7 chapters, I would say that only about 4 of them actually have some sort of meaningful exploration. The rest of them just kind of trap you in some tiny area and force you to go back and forth talking to a million people to move the plot along until you're finally done. Now, that wouldn't really be such a big deal if the story was actually good, but it's not. Every single scenario is 100% separate from one another. None of the stories bleed into each other, and the characters don't meet up either except at the very end of the game. There's also no recurring main theme tying them all together. It's as if the designers just kind of threw ideas at a dartboard and hoped that they stuck and made sense, but they don't. For a game that tries to sell itself on its story, there really is no story to speak of though. It's only at like the 11th hour that you get something like 5 sentences of explanation for what's going on, and that's it. That's your whole payoff. And to say that it's not worth it is the understatement of the year. And now, for the most egregious sin of all. Remember earlier whenever I said that you have to talk to a bunch of people to move the plot along? That right there is what makes me hate this game. It's too much. It's just unreal how many ridiculous plot triggers there are, and 99% of the time you get no indication whatsoever of where you have to go or who you have to talk to continue. Sometimes it's more than just talking to people as well. You might have to use coffee as an item on someone, or type in a letter-perfect password, or else you get a game over. Or maybe investigate a random unmarked gravestone, or sniff out a girl hiding in a haystack that you can't see, or pound on a random wall 5 times while trapped in a pitch-black room. None of this is fun. It happens over and over and over again, and all it's going to do is make you become glued to a guide the whole time just to figure out what the next sequence trigger is to activate the plot. If it just happened like once or twice per chapter, it would be annoying but excusable. But I'm not exaggerating whenever I say that it happens like 50 times per chapter. It's ridiculous. Get ready to become acquainted with game FAQs real quick to get through all this bullshit. Nothing really feels polished either. It just feels rushed and so experimental. Nothing really ever works right and gels together. It's all just so janky, from the combat system, to the storytelling, to the multiple endings, to the bare bones crafting. It's just one big clunky experiment that doesn't pan out in the end. It really does feel like they had several separate teams design each chapter with little to no input between them. One of the chapters plays like a Street Fighter game, another one like a stealth game, and another like a survival horror. And good luck finding a chapter that actually plays like a traditional JRPG, because it's about 20 hours into the game before you get something like that. Just like everything else in the game, the battle system is experimental. However, this is actually one of the few highlights. You fight on a 6x6 grid against anywhere from like 1 enemy to something like 20 on the screen. It can be filled to the brim with enemies, which can also make the battles drag. You do have plenty of abilities to choose from though, and NP does not exist. So a stronger ability might have a longer charge time, or it could actually debuff you in lieu of costing you MP. Buffing and debuffing actually plays quite a large role here, so strategy is nice, hence why I say the battle system is a highlight. However, that being said, because of the nature of the game, many times boss fights in particular just boil down to having the RNG on your side, rather than any kind of strategy or level grinding. Gold also does not exist, so you can't buy any equipment or items. Everything is either found or crafted, and that includes healing items. So if you run out of those, you're just shit out of luck. There were just so many design flaws put into this game, I cannot wrap my head around it. You know how a lot of JRPGs have super bosses in them? Live Alive is no exception, except that they managed to screw that up too. Because rather than having most of the super bosses in the final chapter, they instead place them in the earlier chapters, where many times you're limited to only having one character, as well as very few healing items. Then there's the grinding. In order to beat these super bosses, you're going to have to grind up to about level 16, which is quite the task, considering that you're entirely able to beat the chapter at half that, at like level 8. And level 16 is probably where you're going to be whenever you beat the final boss of the whole game. And it's no fun grinding up to endgame levels on the beginning of the game trash mobs. The upcoming remake is really going to have to fix a lot of these issues for it to become an enjoyable game for me. Granted, I'll probably still buy it if it's available physically, especially because I would love to see exactly what kind of quality of life improvements were implemented. The main issues that I can see are just that you have no clue who to speak to in order to move the plot along, also creating a currency system so that you can purchase equipment or items if need be, completely revamping the entire storyline to flesh it out and further connect all the scenarios, as well as expand many of the shorter chapters to flesh them out and make them all more equal in length. I mean, some of these chapters can take 10 minutes, and then some of them can take 3 hours. The disparity between them is really inexcusable. I am looking forward to the HD 2 Remake as much as the next guy, and I do want Square to know that there is a market for these SNES remakes. I do just wish that they were remaking a better game. Square had so many gems back in their heyday. Why they chose to remake one of their weakest games is beyond me. Now, I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer or anything, but I felt like it was my obligation to all of you to let you know that this game is not some super secret SNES hidden gem. This game was hidden for a reason. It's just not that good. That being said though, I still have played through it twice, and because of that, I do have a lot of insight into its mechanics and its world, and I would love to share all of that with you in future hints and tips videos. So please do be on the lookout for future Live Alive videos, and hopefully ones where I'm not complaining so much. I do hope that this video helps you make an informed purchase, and if you like what I do here on the channel, please consider joining me over on Patreon for early access to my videos, coming on over to the Discord to chat and hang out, or joining the Twitch for some wacky streaming fun. The links to them all can be found in the video description as well as the comments. I hope to see you there, and as always, if you like this, please like, comment, and subscribe, and have a good day.